Hey guys, what's going on? Thank you so much for watching today. Welcome back to another Planet Zoo speed build. And in today's video, we are back in the one-off Australia themed build that we started on stream a long time ago. Last episode or last stream or last video, whatever you want to call it, we did what will be like a restaurant shell, but not really like a sit-down restaurant, more just like a stop and grab some snacks and beverages and stuff like that. But around it is going to be Australia themed habitat. So in front of it is a little turtle pond, and off to the right is what we're building today, and that is going to be the platypus habitat. This build, this little area, is very highly inspired by the Australia section at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. So that is where I am drawing most of my inspiration from, looking at photos and then pulling off of my personal experience going there. This is by no means a one-to-one replication, though. If you guys are not new to the channel, you'll know that I don't like doing exact duplicates. I like just using things as a reference and kind of injecting my own creativity into some of the builds that we do. So that being said, this little house that we're working on here, the front facade, is going to be the platypus habitat. And let me tell you, the most important thing you need to know about this build is it's probably going to be the first and last interior habitat that I do in the next year, because I don't like doing interiors. I really wanted to make it happen with the platypus though, because a platypus really would not be kept outdoors as they are nocturnal, and so keeping them in a zoological facility, you want them to be out and about for guests to see them and not just sleeping the whole time during the day. So they're kept indoors at the safari park, and that's really what I wanted to replicate. But let me tell you, making it a workable habitat so that the platypus can use it and so guests can go inside of it and everything, I don't like doing the interiors, and the roof is a whole nother story. Just wait until we get to the roof of this building. It's not square, it's not symmetrical, it's not anything that's easy to roof, but I made it work. Hopefully it doesn't look too terrible. It really looks okay from the ground, which is all I was really caring about, since the majority of structures are never going to be viewed from up above. They're only going to be viewed from down below, from human height as everybody's walking around. So I really didn't stress about it too much, but I am really happy with how the exterior of this little building came together. I wanted it to feel like a little not like a shed, but like a little house, I guess, so kind of more rustic. The main building is built from the corrugated metal pieces that we got with the Australia pack. So this one I decided to use the log wall pieces and then kind of sink some of the other log items that we got with the Australia pack in to make it look like it is more of a rustic kind of wood building. So I'm really happy with how that came out. On the inside, it does bring a little bit more of the style of the main building inside, where we use like the corrugated metal again and bring in some plants and signs and all that kind of stuff on the inside. This habitat does end up being workable for the platypus, and I have to say that I was very impressed with the traversable area from the platypus. So I end up covering most of the habitat with rocks that you'll see later, and I was really worried that they weren't going to be able to get down into the water and actually swim around, but they can jump the rocks, and it doesn't have to be perfectly smooth, and they can kind of navigate on top of the aquatic rocks, which some animals like the gray seal has a lot of trouble with. So I was a little worried about that, but pleasantly surprised to find out that it wasn't going to be an issue. We've pretty much finished kind of the front entrance way of the building now, and we're moving inside to start with the kind of glass viewing. Ideally, I would have wanted the water to be just slightly deeper so that you could kind of see underwater a little bit better, but I end up getting it to where there's like a foot or so of water where the guests can kind of view underneath, and I left it like that. I didn't want to mess with it too much. This habitat, actually, I end up shrinking shrinking it. So the size that you're seeing now is actually much bigger than what it ends up being. And I was actually a little surprised with myself in that I built it a little bit too big despite having the keeper, the caretaker, whatever that is, or standing right there. But when the platypus actually went in the habitat, they made the habitat look massive. So I ended up shrinking it down just so that it wouldn't look super, super large. The habitat at the safari park is rather small. They only have 2 platypus there. And actually, fun fact, the 2 platypus that they have are the only 2 platypus that are kept outside of Australia in any zoo facility. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I feel very lucky to live so close and be able to have seen them in real life and still be able to go see them when I go visit. Speaking of that, let's go ahead. I have a little bit of a platypus information pulled up just so we can talk about these guys, because I do find them to be a very fascinating animal. They're very weird creatures. But that being said, I have information from the National Geographic pulled up, so that's what we're going to read from today. The platypus is among nature's most unlikely animals. In fact, the first scientists to examine a specimen believed that they were victims of a hoax. The animal is best described as a hodgepodge of more familiar species: the duck, bill and webbed feet, the beaver, the tail, the otter, body and fur. So kind of a mixture of those 3 different animals. Males are also venomous. They have sharp stingers on the heels of their rear feet and can cause them to deliver a strong toxic blow to any foe. Platypus hunt underwater, where they swim gracefully by paddling with their front webbed feet and steering with their hind feet and beaver-like tail. Folds of skin cover their eyes and ears to prevent water from entering, and the nostrils close with a watertight seal. In this posture, a platypus can remain submerged for a minute or 2 and employ its sensitive bill to find food. These Australian mammals are bottom feeders. They scoop up insects and larvae, shellfish and worms in their bill along with bits of gravel and mud from the bottom. All this material is stored in cheek pouches at the surface. In cheek pouches, and at the surface is mashed for consumption. Platypus do not have teeth, so those bits of gravel help them chew their meal. It's actually something ducks and birds do as well, or some bird species do as well, kind of eat little bits of rocks to help them grind up their food. Anyway, platypus on land. On land, platypus move a bit more awkwardly. However, the webbing on their feet retracts to expose individual nails and allow the creatures to run. Platypus use their nails and feet to construct dirt burrows at the water's edge. It's one of the more creepy aspects of platypus, I think, is if you look at their feet, you can see those nails, and in game you can see them as well. I don't know why, I just find it rather creepy. Seals kind of have the same thing. Seals and sea lions, they do have nails on their flippers and things like that, but I don't know. I find it creepy. Anyway, platypus reproduction is very unique. It is one of only 2 mammals that lay eggs. The other mammal that lays eggs being the echidna. I would absolutely love to see those guys in game as well, and I feel like it would be fairly doable, since I feel like the Frontier team could just kind of take the pangolin and kind of modify it a little bit and make the echidna. I think that would be really cool and a really fun addition to the game as well. Females seal themselves inside one of the burrow's chambers to lay their eggs. A mother typically produces 1 or 2 eggs and keeps them warm by holding them between her body and her tail. The eggs hatch in about 10 days, but platypus infants are the size of lima beans and are totally helpless. This means that they are altricial. Altricial babies need all the help they can get, meaning that they need help from mom or dad. They are not born ready to fend for themselves. The opposite of that would be precocial, babies that are born with the ability to take care of themselves, and they need very little help from the parents. Just a little fun fact I thought I would throw in there. Females nurse their young for 3 to 4 months until the babies can swim on their own. So that's a little bit about Platypus. As always, you guys, if you have fun facts, information that I missed, please do let me know. I love learning from you guys as well as just sharing information about these fun little animals. So let's get back to the build. As you can see, we have started on some of the interior, and this is just placing rocks everywhere, covering the habitat in rocks and filling out all the kind of blank spaces or exposed terrain spaces that were left from when I did the original little pool. This was rather difficult because I was trying to get the rocks right up against the viewing area without having them poke through onto the guest side. So it did take some like finagling and stuff. I do end up cutting some footage out, and it's, I think, more so when we get close to doing the roof, but I was really struggling with when the roof gets done and building underneath it. The camera just gets really funky when you're trying to navigate in like a really tight space and do the building, and that's honestly part of why I dislike interiors so much, is just because it's difficult with the camera and whatnot. But you can see here, like I mentioned before, I ended up feeling that the habitat was way too big, and I did a very risky thing, and I decided to remove the water and try to replace the water after the rocks had all been placed, after the barrier and all that kind of stuff. It ends up working out for me, shockingly, because normally it doesn't. Once you place water, I tend to kind of just leave it where it's at, because trying to fix it or finagle it ends up working out worse than just kind of leaving it and building with what you originally placed down. But I was fairly surprised that I was able to kind of replace it and get it all kind of where I needed it to be. I feel like the level might have lowered just a little bit, but it is the water in Planet Zoo. This is as good as we're going to get. You can see the little platypus are now in the habitat, which is great. The habitat, after being shrunk, doesn't look too big. Ideally, I would have wanted the habitat to be slightly even smaller than this, but I really wasn't going to mess with it too much more because I didn't want to break the entire thing, have it not work, and then I also, of course, want the animals to be able to move around, and we are limited by the traversable area and the navigation, mechanics and stuff of the actual platypus. The only thing that I regret with this habitat is that I didn't make the water deep enough, so the platypus really don't dive down under the water. They just mostly swim around on top. But that's okay in that this is a sandbox park. I'm really only building this and looking at it for a little bit, and it's not going to be in like a major project or anything like that. So I can kind of live with them not being able to deep dive, although I would have loved to watch them kind of swim around. This is actually my first time taking a really close look, or not a really close look, but an extended look at the platypus since they arrived in game. When the Wetlands animal pack dropped, I took a look at all of the animals when I first got my hands on the game, but I really didn't take like an extensive look. Like I didn't watch them kind of move around in a habitat and watch the different animations and stuff like that. So I did spend a little bit of time watching the platypus kind of navigate the habitat just to make sure that it could, one, but two, kind of see what it was going to do. And they're very cute. I love that we have them in the game. Anyway, moving on to the nightmare of a roof. This took me so long, and I did cut out part of it already, I believe, but basically just using these pieces, and a lot of them are individual groups so that I can move them individually, and sliding them over so that they meet everywhere, and in the end it does look like a okay-ish roof. I think that's how I'm gonna describe it. It's okay-ish. It gets the job done. It covers the entire building, but it is a hodgepodge of, talking about hodgepodge, and the platypus is a hodgepodge of different species. This roof is a hodgepodge of different pieces, all which way and another, but in the end, I do feel like it kind of helps with my look of like this kind of old rustic shack where it's not perfect, it's not symmetrical. So let me know. Hopefully you guys enjoy it as well. But again, guests are really not going to be looking at the roof all that much. They're going to be looking at everything that's at eye level for them. Now, one thing that I did pull, again, from reference from the safari park is that at the safari park, the platypus habitat has lots of foliage on the ceiling because it's meant to feel like it's kind of in the wild. There's trees, or fake trees on the inside with rocks and stuff like that. So I wanted to bring a little bit of greenery inside into the guest area. So I made these little trellises. In my mind, they would be real plants. I don't know how likely that is to actually work, realistically, but I like how it looks. So using those little lights that came with the Europe pack, and then just some wood pieces, making these kind of like hanging down little trellises, again, just to add some greenery, and then what would be obviously light for the guests. I didn't do any sort of interior lighting other than this, but realistically there would be some sort of like blue or purple light is what I think, because that is what is at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park on the inside, to keep everything kind of dim and dark for the platypus to kind of simulate nighttime, but also make it so the guests can actually see them. So then placing some little benches and a trash can on the inside, and then we get started on some signs. And I really like how these signs come out. I've told you guys in the past that billboards are great and I love them, and they definitely have their place, but there's just something about making a sign out of build pieces that just gives so much character. So I really like how these turned out. I did take a good amount of time to make them all varied and not look like they're just copy and pasted, because we actually make two signs utilizing the platypus decals that came with the Wetlands pack, because I think they look phenomenal, and just making some implied information. Of course, we're just going to take the bracket pieces and make little lines across and make it look like there's actual text there. Again, billboards are great, and we probably could have done some really cool signs with the billboards, but I think these just add so much more character to a build, and I really like the way it looks. I struggle with colors with these a lot, like color schemes and stuff like that. So these ones are kept fairly like neutrally colors, nothing too bright or anything like that. I really wanted the platypus decals to be what stuck out and what kind of draws your attention. But I really like this kind of like dark background with the white lines as the text. I really enjoy how that looks. So this is going to be the one main sign, thinking this would probably be describing something like, their diet or how they navigate their habitat in the wild or something like that. And then there's going to be another one on the other side, which maybe could talk about conservation or the needs of the platypus out in the wild or something. I don't know. I'm just throwing information out there. It could talk about all the information that we talked about earlier in the video. There you go. It's all written down here. This is where we're reading it from. Anyway, so we're going to finish up these signs, and then there's not too much more that needs to be done in the habitat itself. This habitat actually took me, I think it was like 2.5 hours. It really, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, didn't take me all that long. It felt like a long time, and I did this in 2 different sittings, where I sat down and I built kind of the skeleton front section area to kind of get that dialed in, and then I built the interior. I did put it off for a little bit, again, going back to the fact that interiors are really not my favorite thing to build. I did kind of put it off and procrastinate just a little bit, but I am happy that I got it done, and that it looks good. At least I think it looks good. Excuse me, my throat and my chest are still a little funky from being sick. I cannot believe how long this kind of sickness has held on. I unfortunately got COVID like a month ago or so, and although I'm like back to work and, doing normal life things, I definitely still have a cough. I'm definitely still really fatigued and still kind of congested, and so it's been frustrating to deal with the fact that it's kind of just hanging on. It's like the little sickness that just won't go away at all. So I do apologize. Hopefully you cannot hear it in my voice too much, as I know it's not the most fun thing to listen to when somebody's got either a scratchy voice or a nasally voice or feels or seems sick or anything like that. Moving back onto the inside, because we'll stop talking about my sickness, we'll start talking about the actual build itself. We are just kind of doing some finishing touches on the inside here, using the palette pieces to kind of make this little like step up. You know, maybe kids walk up to the glass and they kind of step up on here and they can hold on to the railing to kind of get a better look at the platypus. You can see there's probably what would equate to be like about a foot of water up on the glass. That's where guests would be able to kind of look through and see the platypus kind of swimming in the water. When I've gone to see them at the safari park, they've actually been going crazy. The keepers throw little like crawfish and invertebrates and stuff like that into the water. And I was watching them use their little bills to kind of investigate and forage all over the place. It was actually really interesting to see and very cute. So that's kind of what my memories of the safari park. I've actually only seen them the one time. I need to go back and see them again, but I saw them like 2 days after they opened the exhibit, and there was a huge line to get in and we had to wait, but it was totally worth it because they're very, very adorable to watch. We're adding some actual in-game, what is this called? Education? In-game education signs. That way there's some more information about their range, their ICUN. They are listed as least concern, which is good. But I know they do have, you know, conservation stuff in play for them in Australia itself. Specifically, I do see like the Irwins. Robert Irwin was sharing a video of a injured platypus that was in their hospital or something like that. I follow them. I absolutely love that family, and Steve Irwin was a huge inspiration to me for wanting to work with animals myself. So anyway, I digress. I'm getting off topic on this build. I'm all over the place. I apologize. But we are just doing some little details. I really wanted to cover up the top like plaster piece because I felt like it kind of stuck out. I wanted to use this window because I like the texture of it, but it ended up being too tall and kind of sticking through the roof. So I do replace it with this like Indian wood beam. And that I think is pretty much the last thing that we're gonna do before we jump into some end cinematics. This was actually a little bit longer of a video, so maybe I am underestimating how much time it actually took me to complete this habitat. Maybe it took me like 3.5 hours. I don't remember, honestly, because I've also put off the voiceover for this. So this habitat was done like a few weeks ago, and it's taken me this long to get it out. Oh yeah, that's right. Some foliage out in front and kind of decorating the guest areas. Nothing too exciting or fancy, just kind of carrying over the same stuff that we did before. But with that being said, you guys, there's only about a minute or two left of the speed build. Then there's some cinematics at the end. You can see the platypus enjoying their habitat. If you guys made it this far, hopefully it means you're enjoying the content. And if you are, leaving a like down below really does help me out, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future Planet Zoo content. We are covering a couple other games on the channel as well. So if Planet Zoo, I mean, you've clicked on this video, so I imagine Planet Zoo is your thing, but if it's not, or you're interested in other content, we definitely have that for you as well. You can find me on a whole bunch of other social medias, so Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and I think that's it. Oh, we also have a Discord. Anyway, all those links are down below in the description if you'd like to follow me elsewhere, or have a chat, or share inspiration, or ask questions and get help. I would absolutely love to see you over there. Anyway, with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I do hope you enjoy, and I will talk to you guys in the next video. Have a wonderful day. Bye.